Sounds good to me. Florian, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Great pleasure to be here with you and spend some time and tell you a little bit about what we're up to or what I'm up to.
I'm excited to hear about it. In the notes I've got here to start off with is how stress, burnout, and loss of meaning isn't necessarily from work overload. It's a misalignment between identity, values, and daily life. What do you mean by that?
So it's a great topic. The point is following: if you are stuck in a situation which was imposed to you, you didn't really choose it, that is when stress becomes really unhealthy. And this is when a burnout can happen. What I'm referring to is normally we are educated in a way, early on, well educated, and you have to prepare yourself to make a living, you have to get a good job, and then climb up the ladder, which doesn't necessarily mean that you are living your life. Very often it is decided by factors outside the family, where you grew up, what school you went to, who you met on your journey. It's more, it develops outside. And then when you arrive to situations which you don't want to, which is beyond your control because you ended up doing something which probably isn't fully fulfilling, that one is burnout is triggered. So burnout is not necessarily coming from a workload or stress. It is more the environment you find yourself, you're stuck in something and you can't get out. Because very early on, most likely, you haven't decided what you wanted to do. Yeah, you just decided how life went and opportunities you had in front of your nose, and people told you, recommended you what to do. Yeah, and that is typically when a burnout happens.
Well, I'm excited to dive into how people can find a bit more purpose in their life and not end up somewhere where they don't really want to be. But let's hear about you. I want to know your story and where you ended up, how you ended up where you are now.
Yes, I actually went through that same process you just described. So at the age of 18, I wanted to become a stand-up comedian. I don't know, art school, dramatic art school. My intention was between music and entertaining people, to numb out the pain of ordinary life. And that was, for me, I thought, something I could see myself dedicating to professionally. And then my father said, there are many artists out there not making a living. Maybe you want to study something normal first, and then you can try. So I studied the normal, business administration and marketing. And I got an entry level job, in a healthcare corporation, and off I went on the normal, not what I wanted to do. Then at the age of 33, actually at the age of 31, around that, I went through a coaching at the company, in the corporation, coaching because my boss recommended to do so. And the coaching was at the end a psychotherapy. So this is where I was confronted with my inner child and my adult Florian, which was weird. But once I got the awareness, I actually listened and started to listen to myself. And that triggered a point where I was saying, hold a second, I'm living a successful life where my parents are proud of me. That was the age of 33, basically. And I said, I'm running a company, having a family and a home. But this is not my life. Who am I? What is it what I want? And so that question triggered then actually a reflection saying in my education, I have been the absent subject itself. My education gave me all the tools to make a living, but nothing about me. Who am I emotionally? Who am I mentally? Who am I instinctively? Which I had nothing. So basically then I decided to leave the golden handcuffs. I went into personal development methodologies to find out who am I. Yeah, all different sorts just to understand. And I started my so-called roller coaster life. Yeah, without the golden handcuffs.
Hmm.
And that led me to what I do today, impact investing, where I use capital and the intentionality and the additionality to trigger change in the world profitably. But through that journey, I learned so much about myself. And then I had people coming to me saying, Florian, you do impact. How can I do impact? And I asked them, look, my vocation is impact lives, share profits. I found through my journey my vocation, and I made my vocation my profession. So, Jack, I'm not in a situation where I'm stuck because I didn't want to be there. I put myself up there, which doesn't mean it's hard, which doesn't mean you have anxiety sometimes, you have sleepless nights, because that's what it is. But it is me. It is my challenge. It is my path. Yeah, and what I do is greater than myself. And so it's all worth doing. So the likelihood to have a burnout, it's still there if things are too extreme, but normally it isn't, because you are kind of in your zone. And that's when I ask them, what is your vocation? Normally they don't know. And then they give them some exercises to find their inner child, to work on themselves and find out what they really care for, and then help them to make it their profession. And this is over the journey and the years, then people have asked me to write it down. So I wrote the book, which is a guide. And it's called On Vocation, How to Align Your Purpose with Your Profession, which describes these 7 steps. Yeah, and then the next step is basically, as this works well, and people are benefiting from it, is to help actually people to gain human agency, to figure out what you want, and then you look outside, how to leverage things, also technology, for your own sake. So this is a topic which is very close to my heart, to instill in humans to find their purpose and make it their profession, what I call vocating. Vocating means you dedicate yourself professionally to your vocation. It is to vocate. So I want you and anyone else to consider and thinking about how to vocate.
I absolutely love that. And I agree. It's a passion of mine as well, because I've worked with people in health and fitness, but a lot of the time they're just lost and they just don't really know who they are or what they want. And they think getting fit and healthy is what they want. But it's, again, outside images getting imprinted on them. And it's just, it's hard to watch sometimes when people just don't know who they are or what they're doing, but they're just trying a bunch of different things, hoping something just works and makes them happy. So I'd love to hear how somebody would go from being, I guess, awareness and going, oh, okay, there's something more out there. What should I be doing? So how can we get people to be more aware of the life they're in so they can start living a more purpose-free life?
Yeah, beautiful, Jack. So first step is, as you say, the awareness. So you need to learn about yourself. So I recommend to do some of the personal development methodologies and tools. Yeah, I did the Jung colors, I did MBTI, I did neurolinguistic programming, I did the Enneagram, I did even human design. But once you know more about yourself, how you function, that's the first level, because it helps you to basically make an educated choice of your own sake and life. Within that is also now to start then to work on your inner child. The awareness of the inner child, which initially is kind of strange, even though we all know that I have a child in me, and that child you want to understand and cater to with your adult life, of things out there, and these tools you have learned also through education. This is all valuable. How to do that? Usually you need to cut out noise. And cutting out noise is difficult in today's world because we're always connected, something in, something there. We're all busy, and we're actually masters in procrastination. Keeping us busy with stuff which makes no sense and has no meaning, but it keeps us busy.
Yep.
And so there are different ways how you can go inside. Usually it can be contemplation, meditations or mindfulness, a big piece. Some people do this in religious through faith. You can choose to do that through sports. You can choose to do that just to stillness and find these moments. But that's the part where you start listening to you. So therefore, once you have decided which is an effective way for you to connect with yourself through these different exercises, then I say, okay, let's now figure out and let's do a visualization to go back when you were between 5 and 10 years old. What were the things you really cared about? You as a child wanted to contribute to the world because a lot lies in there and sparks there. Then the next exercise, once you do this, you come up with some signals. Then you move to the end of your life and visualize yourself at your deathbed. What are the things you would like to look back on saying my life was all worth it? And then you go into the center, say today, what are the things I can do today? Now, the big problem is, Jack, that society teaches us that success is fantasy. It is fame, fortune, and power. And if you do so, you will only cater to your ego. And even if you get the fame and fortune and power and or any of the threes are combined, as long as you have it, you're happy. But once you don't have it, you fall off a cliff because it doesn't help you to realize yourself. None of these things you take with you when you leave this world. And normally when people die, they regret not having lived and loved enough. They've been too busy with the hamster wheel, chasing fame, fortune, and power. So it's very difficult. Initially, you need to be careful. If you focus on a desire in order to, define a vocation for you, you should avoid the fantasy and you should stay on intuition. Yeah. So this is not an easy one because both, the imagination and the intuition both have triggered by desires, but one is triggered on a result in the future. Even if you have it, it will not fulfill you. Only as long as you get enough of it all the day by day. Yeah. And the other is to be and to do. Now, so it's like a little bit like I'm a hobby musician. I'm a musician. So if I say I want to be a rock star, most likely if I am a rock star, I will have the cliff afterwards. Like many have, drugs and depressions and these things, because it's just ego fed. If I love to play music with one person, no person, or millions, doesn't really matter because music is for me a therapy. Music is for me an expression of life. I don't need fame, fortune, and power to feed this. And so that's when you will know you're on the intuition side. Yeah, if you translate this to jobs, if you're a doctor and you decided to be a doctor because you earn good money and you're someone in society, it's an ego decision. It is very different. If you decide to be a doctor because you have a calling, this is your vocation, independently of fame, fortune, and power. So those are the things where it is important to listen to yourself first and understand what your vocation. Yeah. So this is a little bit also then when you say, okay, I want to contribute to the world, you need to be careful if it's about helping, you have a privileged position, you're feeding your ego. If you're serving, you have a peer position, you're on intuition. You could actually, basically deliver yourself and you put yourself at risk to or within a contribution. So, and there are notions around that where you need to understand as you're listening to you and as ideas come up of what to contribute. Yeah, that you need to balance. We all have ego because we all want to make a difference in the world. Otherwise, why wouldn't? Yeah, so that the ego is fine and the ego is okay, important to protect ourselves. We are very fragile, but it shouldn't be the driver for your contribution. So you need to temper your ego, cater to your ego, which is the adult also, and then the inner child. And that's always a balance. So
Mm.
once you do these exercises, you come up with ideas, with thoughts, with dreams, yeah, in a meditation, in a contemplation, yeah, when you really go inside. And that is when you say, okay, now I have something. Let me see what I can do with that something in the outer world. And once you decide that, which is in step number 2, the first one is just really defining your purpose, the exercise, which is the most difficult one for many people. Then you can define a theory of change, what you can do with that purpose, how you could trigger change, how you could contribute. Once you have that, you go further down and look at sector and communities. You know, where could I go? Who works in this field? Which industry? How can I contribute to that? That's the third one, which leads you to the fourth step out of 7. But the fourth is really you design your vision board. You design your personal, professional business plan to vocate. Yeah, and then really starting reaching out and going in action, and you can do tools. You can use tools like manifesting and so on. So that is what I have done with many people for many years. Also, then I put it into my book. Yeah, and now I'm working on to digitalize this, you know, to gamify the 7 steps. But so that's the thing. You need to get awareness about what is it, what you want, your vocation, your agency of your life, and then to use the skill set you have, the superpower you have, which is the education component, and combine it with your vocation.
I am loving this. It's like you're talking directly to me. So I'll try not to make it about me too much. So I feel like I've been going on this journey as well. Like I always say, I'm a very slow learner. I like to take my time with these things. And I definitely know, like you, I realized that, you know, there was more out there to life, and I wanted to start living a life that was true to me. And that's what the True Form podcast is all about, trying to find my true life, and just taking people along on the ride with me. I'm at the point where I can quiet the noise, sit in quiet, and try and, I guess, talk to my inner child. But what I'm struggling to do is connect, or like you're saying about ego, like sometimes it's hard to understand, like, you know, what is ego and what is going to drive me forward with purpose. It's a hard line to sort of cross or understand. Any advice on, I guess, like you did touch on it, but if we could dive into it a little bit more about, you know, what is ego and what should I actually be focusing on?
This is a beautiful struggle we all have. Every human has. Even the most aware ones, you know, which work with themselves, or which, like I do every day. I meditate every day. I try to manage myself every day, day by day. And the difficulty is that the ego will always talk to you, try to convince you, this is okay, this is the right thing, this is important. Because the ego is actually a mechanism to protect your vulnerability. And to a certain sense, it's important because for life to sustain and to succeed and to move ahead. But there's a fine line. And so the self-realization doesn't come from the ego. It comes from a vocation, which to a certain extent caters to the ego, but it is, sorry.
You're up.
So it's early morning here. I'm getting my vocal cords up. So what you describe is a very important one, because it means there's a reflection in a humble way. Any decision, desire I have, any decision I make, I ask myself, is it for the others or is it for me? Which is one of the steps I describe actually in the execution. Yeah, because once you understand that you're able to put, you know, if you want to solve for something, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the others, because then ego goes away. And that's an important part. Our ego is much lower, at least. So let me give you an example. When I was running the company in Mexico at the age of 33, and I also created a non-for-profit continuous medical education because I wanted to give back corporate social responsibility. Yeah, because I mean, typically you make money and then you do good.
Yep.
Yeah, which for me is the wrong place to think. You should do both things at the same time, all the time. Yeah, because by making money you might do a lot of damage. Yeah, and then you want to oh by the way, let me try to fix it. Yeah, or give something back. So this is a fundamental flaw of humanity. But at that time, we were donating, and then also within the foundation, we were donating material and for causes, for patient associations. I was working in healthcare. Yeah. And also we were supporting an extramural surgery program. You basically had a OR on a truck going into the jungle in Mexico, in the most remote areas where there is no normal healthcare. And then as we were donating, and I was running the company there, and I was the founder of the non-for-profit, then the doctor said, Florian, why don't you join? I said, okay, fine. I grew up in the OR anyway, early stage, in my early stages, instrumenting surgeries from industry and these things. So fine. So I went there as a scrub nurse. And you're out there, you have this program, indigenous people are medically treated, which is all good. And I remember a small child with a cleft lip, mouth draped, a picture. We did that. We put it actually on our newsletter because I felt so great how amazing this is for this child. Speaking better, eating better, sleeping better, communicating. So I was really happy. And then 6 months later, when the truck went in again, because they go in and out, I asked the doctor actually to take a picture of the child smiling. And I learned that the child had died because it was an infection. There is no doctor, no pharmacy, and you die. And it struck me. I said, how can I be so selfish, ego-driven, wanting there to shine as a privileged person, where actually helping, showing up, doing, and leaving is unfair from a dignity point of view. Nobody wants to be pitied. So that's where the learning between serving and helping, because if we would have invested in a presence of healthcare, in primary healthcare delivery, that would not have happened. Because I did put myself in the shoes of the child. I just felt good because I am privileged and I'm helping.
Yeah.
And that struck me for life. And this is later on when I learned about impact investing, capital as a force for good. I said, if we would have invested there, not just given something, that would have been much better. So it caters back to ask yourself, anything you do, how much is it for you? And how much is it really for the cause or the things you want to resolve for or the challenges you want to contribute to? Because you have that discussion between the inner child and the adult, between intuition and imagination. So that's a constant reflection. So what I reflect you in your case is the same. That if you have a dream, if you visualize something and you want to go there, and you want to succeed, the contribution has to be a contribution in terms of serving, not a contribution in terms of helping. And you will, once you have that awareness, start to change the cursor slightly. And you can also ask people outside, in order to fix this, what do you need? How can I support you? How can I serve you, not help you? And so once you have that awareness, you will start to make different decisions. Or at least the way you approach things will be less on the ego and more on on the service side.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And again, thank you. That's going to help quite a lot. Like you said, whenever I feel that ego thing coming through, it's again all about the numbers and am I getting enough views? Am I reaching enough people? All that sort of stuff. But when I'm doing it for somebody else, it's completely different. It doesn't matter about those things. So yeah, that is a good sort of reality check to see where I'm at and who I'm actually helping. Thank you. So where do we go from there? We've figured out, I guess, we've listened to our emotions. We know what we need to do to serve others. What's the next step?
Yeah, it's really just it's the point to say, okay, this theory of change, how can I implement this?
Mm.
Yeah, so it's really about, you need to look and research what professional options do you have to do this service.
Mm.
Because again, human nature comes in. Yeah, our parents told us, no, don't think about some spooky things. Yeah, this is life, and you need to sustain life, and you need to be successful, and you need to earn money, and you need to have a family, and these things. And this is where the confusion comes, because normally we don't think that a vocation is actually a job.
Mm.
Yeah, it's more philanthropy, a cause, I give. And that's the part where now actually you start really looking into what you can do.
Mm.
So let me give you an example. I was giving a workshop at Oxford University for the MBA cohort, the students there. And one of the students said, Florian, I studied so hard to learn financial modeling, and AI is making my job obsolete. I will be never as good as AI in financial modeling. So what's my future? And I said, hold a second. Let's work on your, let's first work on your vocation, and then we'll come back to you. And so we did an exercise and these things. And then he came back and said, look, my big cause is actually, I see humanity being affected by climate change, and I would love to do something about it. I said, okay, your theory of change is climate adaptation. You want to foster, support, invest, or whatever in climate adaptation. So now let's look at sectors and communities. So then you go to exercises, you do a little bit of research, you do journaling, understanding, which is which sectors and professions and community actually can I bring myself in. And therefore I say, okay, hold a second. Your skill set is finance. That's what you study. That's your superpower. Your vocation is climate adaptation. You combine both and you start to vocate.
Mm.
And then we look at, okay, what sectors? I said, well, there could be insurance companies need to measure the impact of climate change. Every insurance company. I need people like you, not only with a skill set on the financial side and on the modeling, on the risks, but really on the vocation. You can go to financial services and, in the financial markets. They need to, when they invest, consider and manage, climate change because it's just happening. You might go to big corporations, some food companies, supply chains being affected. So your vocation on climate adaptation, and your skill set in finance is very good there. You can go to smaller companies having products in the same sense, delivering services for climate adaptation. You can do a startup, design your own idea and a thought and a solution you have. How you can, from a financial modeling, you can do a fintech, you can do so many things still in climate adaptation. And that is the answer. And then you actually know what you're up to. And you start reaching outside, knowing this is what I want to do. Let me see where can I do it and how can I do it.
I absolutely love that example. A mate of mine always talk about this at the moment. Like AI is just, you know, on everybody's lips. Everybody's talking about it, and I have many friends in the tech industry, and they're always saying that AI is going to take my job and all that sort of stuff. And I always try and think of an example of saying that you're not your job. A lot of people say, like when I say hi, what do you do or who are you? They describe their job, and I'm like, well, you're not your job. That example you just gave, it's just you could just say I'm somebody that cares about the environment or climate change instead of saying I am a financial advisor for that. It's you find out what you're passionate about and you use that, and that's who you are. So thank you for that. I've been trying to look for an answer for that for a long time.
Here you go. My own leitmotif is impact lives, share profits.
Mm.
So what we're discussing is not my professional job as impact investor.
Mm.
Yeah. What we're discussing right now is actually for you as a human to find your mantra, which defines you and puts you out there in a very different light. Still, I do what I do. Because in impact investing, my goal is to impact lives and share profits. But now when we talk about this, it also applies to, because you have different ways how something can express. And you're absolutely right, Jack. The important piece here is the following. If you look at your LinkedIn, LinkedIn is our digital business card.
Yep.
And you normally the title below is, I am manager doing X. You describe your function in an organization, which is fundamentally wrong. You should describe your motivation and who you are.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is really, it's not rocket science, but it's to understand it. How do you want to position out there in the world? Yeah. And this is, for example, again, my leitmotif is impact lives, share profits. Yeah. This is just what I'm in the essence of what I care about. But on my side, on my title, you see, I'm an advisor of founders, investors, and boards on growth strategies and capital mobilization by aligning profit and purpose. That's from a professional path, what I do. And so if you do this, depending on what you've studied, what your path is, you describe this. But once you are aware of what your mantra, your vocation is, the positioning of what you do is very different. Yeah. And this is when you put it even in an organization, people will perceive you different. And it's actually a possibility, which I've done in organizations. When you have a leadership position, you can start doing the same, applying for the company or for the organization, not just for a person. And then things are really magic, because you're no longer looking at the shareholder value, you're looking at the stakeholder value. Your net promoter score goes through the roof. The company still does the same. But if you put it in context what your actual contribution is beyond selling a product, which good features and a client is happy to pay for, but in a broader sense, things change massively. And this is where you apply it in organization, which is my second book, which I just finished, is how to align your purpose with your business, with your organization. Yeah, so it's on vocation in organizations. And so it's the same thing, because you can put this in action once you've defined your own mantra, you've defined the sector and the community or the organization you want to join, then you join it. You can actually build this step by step in an organization, which is a massive change, because it really provides a very different fuel for people to do something. Yeah, it's a more intrinsic motivation rather than something only outside coming from a salary you earn, rewards you get, or the title or position you have, which changes again. And it's a beautiful ripple effect you cause once you're clear about your mantra and you put it out there in the professional context.
I'm going to bring an example of a client that sort of asked me this question. Pretty much, I'm excited to actually send this whole conversation to him because it's what the question he asks. He's like, what can I do because AI's taken my life, taken my job and all that sort of stuff. So one of his biggest issues, I think he'll dive into all this, probably read your book and go through each step. But one of the biggest things I think he's going to struggle with is the outside pressure. Like, as we were talking about, success is defined by money, house, car, all the things that don't actually matter that much. And he's from a culture where those things are held in high regard. So for him to step away from that is going to be quite hard. So any tips on people that understand this, they've done the work, they can see who they are and what they want to do, but that outside pressure is just still dragging them back into that world of success, in quotation marks?
That's a beautiful case.
Mm.
And I invite people not to step away, not to go against.
Okay.
Because if you want to trigger change, you want to trigger change in society, not going out there and doing your own thing.
Mm.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the only way to do, because if the environment is so toxic to your, vocation, but many times it isn't. Yeah. This is where things come into context. Yes, you have to learn to not let the bozos grind you down.
Mm.
Yes, you have to learn to stand up, because this is my value and this is what I do. Yeah. And yes, you have to sometimes say some of the relations might be less important because there's only so much on the ego side, so much on fame, fortune, and power. And these people will not understand me. Then I understand, but you don't have to go fully away. But it can be actually contagious, because when you have conversations around that you just finally found your mantra. Yeah. And you can phrase it in a professional ego way.
Mm.
Yeah. It's the same for me, for example, impact investing, it's very often seen as the philanthropist, the do-gooder, the tree hugger, and he goes, no, sorry. I'm investing my money and my time, risking it for return. You do the same. The only thing is, on top of what you do, I care about what my money does on the ground. You don't. You just want to have returns. And again, once you have an interest in caring what your money does, it's really fantastic and fascinating. Yeah, I'm not saying to you to learn less, to earn less. No. It's just to understand the intentionality of the money you invest. And then you would do different investment choices. You will still do private equity if you do private equity, debt, or if you go in public markets, you will still do your things. But you will be interested to know, what is there actually a mantra below an investment I do? And so it's a conversation to have where I'm not judging, you're the bad guy, you're on the dark financial side, you're destroying the world, how can you? No. I'm just saying, invite you, and you might test a little bit. Yeah, because it's really fun, and it gives me so much to understand that if I invest my money, I'm actually solving something for something, And so that's the notion where it hasn't to be black or white. Yeah. Now, Jack, the big issue we're talking about with AI is a whole different one. Yeah, we are going through an industrial revolution. We thought the internet was an industrial revolution. It wasn't. It was an incremental efficiency. Now it is massive. AI foresees 500 million people losing their job in the next 2 to 3 years. AI sees that entry-level juniors, they come out of university, you don't find a job like the good old Gen Xers we were taught, You work, you're disciplined, you're focused on your education, you finish a good college, you apply for a job, and then you work your way up. This is no longer working because these big corporations don't need the juniors. And no knowledge is no longer an asset because you get it directly from the machine. And that is a big risk, that the humanity is subjugating itself to AI. And that's something I want to do about it, which is actually on the human agency side, on the awareness of the inner child for you to figure out, because unfortunately in our education, there's nothing vocational. Now, the first article, a LinkedIn article I wrote over 10 years ago says, why is education not vocational? And it describes the situation I have felt at its time in the corporate life. And there's nothing bad about corporate life. And by the way, the company was a great company. My colleagues were fine. There's nothing bad to say, but I was in a situation which wasn't for me. Yeah. And so because there's a reflection, you have to do choices in life, and you shouldn't do the choices in your life just on opportunities. You should be true to yourself. And in an AI time, even worse. So the good thing of AI is there's never been as easy to create something, launch something, innovate something, because it's fast, cheap, and everyone can do. The threshold is low. But if you ask the machine what you should do with your life and what you do professional, you're subjugating yourself. That's a bad way, because you might end up in a burnout because it wasn't your path. Somebody else told you. Yeah, ChatGPT told me I'm good in that, and I should go there because I could earn more money. Bad decision. If you go back to say, this is me and my life, and those are the choices I do. And so it's important to stand your ground, because then you leverage technology. You tell AI, I want you to do this too. I need this from you, because you know where you're going, and you're just fine tuning and going faster and cheaper. Yeah, and you don't have to be just privileged or which college you come from or where you live. It doesn't. As long as you have electricity and internet, off you go.
Yeah.
And so that's the part going back to your client. The conversation to have is, what is your mantra? Put it into your real life's context and navigate through it so that you take the right choices in order to have a thread and go. Again, you might change your vocation over time. That's your choice. You don't have to justify anything to anyone. Yeah, maybe to your spouse and your kids, if a change is a big one because you have to move something else in here. But in generally, it's a decision you made which is based on your intuition. Yeah, with the adult, with a certain component of ego. And so I invite people to be courageous, because you only have one life. I invite people to think through, because the only thing you cannot regain is time. And so the reaction of midlife crisis, which is typical, people have been doing something which is not what they really wanted to do. It might have worked out more or less, but it doesn't change. It is not what you want to do, because you never asked yourself. Yeah, and then you have a pivot. Some people go crazy, wild, yeah, and just want to enjoy and live lives to its extent, which is not self-fulfilling. Yeah, but it's a reaction, an ego reaction. Or you can say, hold a second, I go inside. What is it? What I really want? I connect with myself, and I make good choices, so that once my life is over, I can say it was all worth living.
Yeah, I think you put it again perfectly. I do think there's going to be a bit of a transition period with AI and people losing their jobs, but I think for humanity, I do think it's going to be a good thing, because people are going to be starting to ask, who am I and what do I actually want to do? And if you have a whole population of people on this planet doing what is true to them, humanity will be so much better. I think it's just going to take a little while, but it's people like you doing the work you do that's going to help it along a lot faster. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I'm following you.
I was just gonna say, so what is getting you up in the morning and just firing you up so you can just absolutely kill it throughout the day? Like, what gets you excited each and every day?
Yes, it's a great question. So I do 2 exercises every day. Yeah, one is meditation. Now, I'm not a very good trained person in meditation, I would say. Yeah, because friends of mine, they can just sit there, disconnect, go inside, all good, do this 20 minutes, and off they go. I need guidance. My brain goes in left and right, and I have difficulties to temper my brain. So I use guided meditations. Yeah, I use Insight Timer rather than Calm or Headspace. Yeah, because I tried Calm and tried Headspace, but it's kind of every day the same thing. Yeah, and then it becomes repetitive in terms of, yeah. So Insight Timer, you have a pool of thousands of practitioners, and you choose the language, the topic, whether it's, you can go in mindfulness in all directions. And I made my lists of different topics. Yeah, sometimes anxiety, sometimes it's manifesting, sometimes it's, so there are different pieces where I look to from a content, and I do this every morning. First thing I wake up, earbuds in, I have my list, I choose something, and have 20 to 40 minutes. Whoop, and that tunes. Second thing I do is, when I go into the shower, I ask myself 3 reasons why I'm grateful for why I'm grateful for today. Now, I don't allow myself to just say the next morning the same thing and next morning the same thing. I have to think every day something different. And then you really need to think through. And it can be the water, sense of the water on your body. I might be grateful for that. Yeah, it might be a conversation I had yesterday. It might be something I've seen. It might be, the contribution I just gave. It can be something very intimate, it might be, some food I had. Yeah. It's just things, because gratitude is a huge positive power. And if you understand that your thoughts, and there are studies, of course, around that your thoughts influence your emotions through the hypothalamus. It goes back also to my human agency. And for me, this is a big component that it's a little bit, the cover page of my book was done by my children. Yeah, and you see a little bit Little Prince, small person standing there in the big waves out there of the world. And the wave can be a tsunami, or a wave can something you ride the wave. The waves are still there. Yeah, you need to be careful. Yeah, sometimes they catch you and then you go back up and you correct again. Yeah, but that's a little bit the thing here is day by day, you support your human agency. You stay on course of things and, things you care about. And not from an ego, from a service level. It's very different. Yeah. And the people you meet, things happening to you, sometimes even before certain things might have happened, I wouldn't even noticed. But because of the awareness, I notice, which makes my day very different. My conversation with you, Jack. It could be just a podcast and I talk my stuff. Yeah, we have a scheme and we go through and we move on. No, because, you share things like, for example, your client and how to twist things, which makes it meaningful for me. So what makes my day grateful is that I hope to impact lives and share profits as much as I can. And I'm really, really concerned in a worried way of AI, sucking up humanity in its end. Yeah. And so the crowd is just following information on the cloud. Yeah. Rather than saying, this is what I need to do and I want to do. This is what is important for me, for my family, my community, the people I care about. And I use technology. And that's for me a big message to say, be careful. AI is a great tool. It's fantastic for efficiency. It's a leapfrog of humanity for efficiency. But it still has to be the humanity deciding, for the sake of humanity, how to use the tool.
100% agree. And again, like I said, I think the work you're doing, I don't think we have too much to worry about. So, but I'm glad you're worried because you're doing the work you're doing. Where can people find your books and learn more about you?
So easy. It is on vocation.com. Yeah, that's my site. You see certain things I've done, articles, the books. You can contact me. You can also register if you want to be working on the minimal viable product, of the vocating app. Yeah, so if people want to test it, because we want to make sure that one thing is you and I are talking, which I've been doing for a long time, or I have a book, and I try to convey the same. But the other thing is to do this really at scale through an application. Yeah, and that's the part where things become interesting. So you can also sign up there if you're interested to just test and see. For us, this is an important part. Are we able to send the same signal, for people on the inner child? Then what you do with what the inner child wants to do, and that with the adult in the outer world, professionally, that is basically the path we're working on. And so I'm grateful for our conversation and for you, Jack, and your community get the message out. And I would look forward to a very interactive and engaged.
Yeah. I think so as well. I appreciate that because, again, like conversations are great, but getting people to take action and so use things. So that app, I think I'm going to jump in on it and definitely give it a go. So I'm excited to do that. Florian, thanks for coming on the podcast. I've absolutely enjoyed this conversation. I've got a lot out of this. And like I said, I know everybody else is as well.
Me too, Jack. This was a great conversation. I love what you're doing. Keep the good work up, because in a sense, also you have a mission here with your podcast. Yeah, in a greater sense, to trigger change in their life.
100%. Helping people find their true form. That's what it's all about. What is up? Thanks for being here at the end of the episode. Obviously, you've enjoyed it and it's helped you find your true form. And I bet you know somebody that's going to help find their true form as well. So I'd appreciate it if you could copy this show link, send it to one friend or family member and say, hey, have a listen to this. It's going to help you find your true form. They'll probably have no idea what you're talking about, but it will help them. And I'd appreciate if you could do that. Also, all podcast platforms these days have some sort of algorithm. So the more you interact with this episode, the better it's going to perform and help reach more people and help them find their true form as well. So 5-star review, positive comment, like, share, comment, however you can interact with the episode. I'd appreciate that. And everybody listening that hasn't heard of the True Form podcast is going to appreciate it as well.